welcome to the 8th stop on the the men's World Cup skeleton tour from St. Moritz, Switzerland, the birthplace of the sliding sports. It's the 8th and final event. Today, a World Cup champion.
It's going to be the deciding race for the overall World Cup, as well as figuring out who exactly is going to the Olympic Games. So it's going to be a huge race within the race. It's going to be some exciting stuff happening today. Now, St. Moritz is the only natural track in the world. It is considered a huge ice sculpture, and every corner on this track has names. So this first corner, you're going into kink 1, and you gotta be super quiet. As a slider, you can hear the announcer as you're going down this part of the track, and it's really quite magical. Into kink 2, you gotta be super calm, super still. There's a little bit of juts that come out from the wall, so you can't be fighting for entries. Into wall, a big left-hand corner, into snake 1 and snake 2, the nice flowing corners, into sunny, which is considered the sunniest part of the track. It gets the most sun in the day, into Nash, and then into Dixon, which is going to set you up for this big left-hand corner. You're going to see athletes going to the roof in horseshoe. There's a sign on the roof you're going to look for, seeing them get height, telephone, into Shamrock, into Devil's Dyke, which is a big left-hand corner. These athletes are starting to get 114 kilometers an hour, into Nameless, into Tree, and then into Bridge. All these left-handers leap, and then finally Gunter Sachs is the end of those right-handers, into Martineau, which is big final curve, into Portego, where you will cross the finish line. We will see track records today, as they happen every single year.
That's Elizabeth Meyer, former member of the Canadian women's skeleton team, and married to Benny Meyer, the Austrian bobsledder. She'll join me today. Here's our World Cup standings. Martins Ducars, the greatest of all time, is in first. It's close, though. Separate Axel Jung and Martin Ducars here by 4 spots. Axel could win the World Cup title. And
I think it's pretty open between those top three guys, depending on where they finish, who's going to take the overall globe. We saw that on the women's side this morning.
We saw some wild sliding this morning with an Australian, Jacqueline Narcott, winning out of nowhere, the first Australian gold medal ever in the sliding sports.
And so I think we can maybe see some movement depending on how it goes for these top 3 guys.
A lot on the line for a lot of these athletes. Some of these athletes here know that their results today will determine whether or not they walk in the opening ceremonies in Beijing in 3 weeks. There's Mr. Ducars himself. Beautiful St. Moritz. Here's our start list. The Canadian Evan Neufeld will lead it off. We have a large field of 32 athletes, and largest field of the year. And you know, it's always better to go last.
Definitely. Maybe not so much in this afternoon that it matters so much, but in the start of the day, as more sleds go down, the track does get faster.
2 heats cumulative time. Here's Evan Neufeld, 34 years old, University of Saskatchewan, decathlete, but basically just an outdoor guy, right?
Totally, and Evan took a few years off. He was in that Pyeongchang season and then decided to come back for this season. He has epilepsy, and he's an amazing ambassador for that in Canada. You can see that jet that we were talking about. It's a little bit, even if you're a bit to the slider's right, it will push you away.
Well, he's the rabbit. He doesn't have a real good advantage, but of course, this is different than the morning when 9 o'clock in the morning. It's not really advantageous to go first like it is in all the refrigerated tracks. We saw that. We saw some amazing times this morning, but I thought that was the case with Jacqueline Narcott. She backed it up with the best time of the first heat and the second best time of the second heat. So she walked away with the gold medal for Australia.
And the track is super quick this year. You can see Evan coming out of Horseshoe with 101 kilometers. That's not very common in other years. 100 is amazing. So this is a really fast track this year. We might see 140 kilometers.
Hasn't made the cut in the 2 events so far this season. Top 10 this past year. That track record, 108.64. First of many. We had 8 in the first heat of the women's event. I bet you we have at least 8, if not more, here in the men's event.
And Evan is a very experienced slider. Like, he has been sliding for many years, took those 4 years off and came back. But because he took that time off, he had to do North America's Cups and make his way back into the circuit. As you can see him coming down, he looks like he should be okay, but there's a little bit of a jet of ice that just caught the slider's right bumper. Nice height and horseshoe, maybe could be a little bit higher to get that slingshot effect, but he taps right on the left into telephone. Just as he's coming off, maybe a bit too much, just on the bumps.
Hey, Evan. Okay, next athlete from Switzerland, Ronald Autoset. Ronald, he's been around for a long time, just doesn't get the great results.
He's very quick on the start. He swapped sleds a couple years ago, and I think he's just starting to flow with it.
Well, start record, expect that. It's going to happen a lot. But,
it's so important for these sliders to be very quiet during these straightaways. He's not even getting close to that right wall.
32 years old, from Freeburg. He's an engineer.
You can see him tapping with his toes. So with skeleton, you drive with your head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You bend the sled. If you want to go right, you put your left shoulder in, you look to the right, put your right knee in, or drop your right toe, and vice versa to go left. And that's how we can control our sleds.
Well, he's got 3,500s in the bank, but he should. You know, he's been around.
You can still see those toes kind of dancing around him, just trying to get a bit more stability onto the sled.
17th in Winterberg was his best result of the year. 21st in World Cup points. Switzerland will get one sled.
However, there are very strict rules to qualify for them from their national federation. So it'll be interesting to see if someone will go.
The next guy up was Jean-Jacques Booth from Switzerland, but he withdrew.
He's a DNS, I think, today.
Not starting. So, you know, he's got the lead, but there's a couple guys coming up real quick that could change that. A lot of issues up here, right?
Yeah, a bit skiddy. He's just fighting the sled, and especially in this area, you don't want to be. Could be a little bit higher in horseshoe. Kind of gets an extra bit of a blip, and it's just fighting into telephone. And it just is going to push you so far into telephone.
So, Ronald Autoset is down. He's the lead. Thomas Dukar is coming off a gold medal a couple weeks ago in Sigulda, Latvia. The veteran who has got 141 World Cup starts in his career.
And it was 18 years between his first gold medal in World Cup and his second gold medal in World Cup. So he is a definite veteran of our sport.
Well, his brother's the greatest of all time. This guy hasn't done too bad either.
You can see him wiggling a little bit in that straightaway, just trying to get the sled under him. Wall is a little bit tricky this year. You can see some athletes fighting as the sled goes a bit to the left.
Great numbers already. But this is what he does. He's, I would say, the tallest athlete in the field.
I think so.
Yeah. Good form, watch his feet. Taps a little bit to get out of. Look at these curves. Telephone, double stike.
Great speed coming out of horseshoe, 102.6.
All the names of these curves weren't recent names. They're 100 years ago.
And they all have a story, which makes this place really special.
You got that right. So Thomas Dukars will set the track record. 138 clips. That's about 83 miles an hour. Wow.
I hope we see 140 today.
107.69. Whoa, that's pretty quick on a 1,620-meter track.
Definitely.
Over a mile in length, and another day at the office for Thomas. You know, he's not bad in World Cup points. 8th in World Cup points. Started slowly in the season, but the last two events he's been 1st and 5th.
You can see him quickly get onto the sled. And as he comes out of the spur, it goes a bit to the sliders, right? Into horseshoe, you want that height. He'd even be a little bit higher if I'm going to be picky, because he comes out, and I think he taps just as he goes into telephone.
Well, the veteran slider, he was 6th in the Yanqing event earlier this year, so keep our eyes on him. Now, next athlete at the top of the track is Christopher Grothier, and this guy has been third in World Cup points. He's won one race this year, been on the podium 3 times.
So we have Gassner here, and as he goes into kink 1, he actually put his sled way off to the right side to get the best entry into kink 1. The athlete has the choice as to where they would like to position their sled. And because in St. Moritz it's such a unique entry into kink 1, a lot of people push it to the far right side.
I apologize, Vincent Dorf here, it's Gassner. He's had an off year, fourth the last time out, his best finish.
But he did pretty darn good in Yanking, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, in the Yanking event, he won it. So I'm sure the German selection process remembers that.
Definitely. Really nice height there in Horseshoe. 102.9 speed is phenomenal in there.
He should be pulling away, should get it up to 1000s here. 900.
Great speed. 115 is huge speed.
Him and Dukars are 7th and 8th in the standings, so those two have been going head-to-head as they are right here. But 2,500's up, I'm sure. Another track record.
Definitely.
There you go. 2,300's up. There's 2 track records, and we will keep adding those numbers. And, again, Mr. Gassner, not really.
He's had a couple off results this year, but I think he's starting to come into his own as we're heading into the Olympic Games, which is exactly what he needs. He had a bit of an odd one in that second Innsbruck race, finish not making the cut.
21st then, but 4th last week, 5th the week before, so he might be peaking at the right time. And again,
look at this height. He is trusting it. This is a line I would want to take coming out of there. You can see that toe drop just to get the sled off the corner. Nice entry in the telephone.
He's the leader. So next up, Nikita Trebnikov, the Russian who won the silver medal at the 2018 Winter Olympic Games, but he's had a 4th in World Cup points. Hasn't had a podium this year, which is very surprising.
He's been consistent, if nothing else. He's been around that 5th, 6th, 7th position every single race.
4th in the points, not on the podium, and he finished 10th in the first race, so you're right.
It's a long season, 8 races.
He's certainly been consistent. Look at these lines here.
You can see his toes right behind him, kind of dancing a little bit, not really touching the ice, but kind of swaying the sled a little bit.
His second best start. 300's better than the leader, Gassner.
Fighting a little bit that right side as he heads into Sunny.
Russians will get 3 sleds into the Winter Olympic Games as they give it the winner. 500's back, 3rd best speed.
This is looking like a good run, but today is quite a bit warmer than all these athletes trained in, so setup might play a big role in today's race.
They had 2 days of training. They flip-flopped. The early group went first, of course, and the late group in the afternoon at 1 o'clock, and then on the next day, they flipped it. So the athletes did get a chance to train in the afternoon, but it wasn't this warm. 1600's back, 2nd. Decent speed, but not as good as Gassner. Gassner he was flying down the track. So
not a bad run for Nikita Trebnikov. And he's coming to into his own a little bit more on the start. He's starting to pick it up.
Start isn't the best. Not like the Tretiakov, but it still works, right?
Nope, definitely not like Tretiakov, but for him, I think he's made some good strides. You can see those toes just peeking behind him just to change the sled angle.
So Mr. Trebnikov is in 2nd. We'll go back to the top. Matt Weston from Great Britain didn't compete last weekend. Didn't get a chance to ask those guys. 2 of them, I wonder if they went to another, they just took the week off.
Some big British cheers at the top of the track.
Matt's had a pretty good season, started off 13th, and the next week he was the gold medalist. Since then, though, he's been struggling. Track record at the start, that's his forte.
Totally. And he's got a lot of career ahead of him, I think, as well.
Fastest push time.
Well, that fast push time, though, a little mistake out of the first curve. 1500's up. Should have probably did more than that with that start.
Definitely. And you can actually hear the sled kind of skidding, I think, a little bit underneath him.
900's back. This is Nash and Dixon coming up this curve. This horseshoe just got out of Nash and Dixon.
Little bit low in horseshoe and a bit of a bump in the telephone. It's going to really show on the speed.
Yeah, his start advantage got taken away out of that first curve. 210.
Just bleeding a little bit of speed as he heads down the track.
Well, you know, for a guy that won a gold medal earlier in the year, 2 bronze medals, or 1 gold medal, excuse me.
His top speed, though, is right in the mix.
His best finish since then's been a 7th, so he's in 4th. Not too bad. 900s behind Dukars, 16 behind Tregeboff, 3200s down to the leader Gassner. But a pretty good season for him when you consider he won that second event of the year. That second event of the year was that 3-way tie for the gold medal.
That was a wonderful race to watch.
That was spectacular,
You
wasn't
can
it?
see the ice coming out of the groove there as it is made every single year. The grooves can be a bit more wobbly than we're used to. He's really fighting on that kink, and he gets a bit of a bump, which is why he fought that left wall, the slider's left wall, all the way down to kink 2, dropping the toe to get rid of those skids. It's hard to stop when they start, though.
Back at home and everyone here.
Next up, Axel Junk. Well, this athlete here, 2nd in World Cup points. And he had a good middle part of the season, a gold, 2 silvers, and then a bronze or silver last week. So he's got 4 podiums, 2nd in World Cup points. Challenging Dukars for the medal. Martin's Dukars.
And he's also been quite consistent. Oh, he has a groove pop. He needs to relax as quickly as he can.
See what his speed is coming up. Uh-oh, that could hurt. 30 years old from Dresden. He was a former ski jumper.
His home track of Altenburg, Germany. He's been struggling a bit with injuries over the past few years. I think this is his first full World Cup season. In this quad, potentially.
1200s up. Keeps it at 1200s up. He's got a chance. Good knee top speed in the exit of the pivotal part of the track, the famous horseshoe curve.
Bit of a bump on the exit of horseshoe there.
5th best speed though, 14 and a bump there.
It's really difficult when you pop the groove in skeleton because you need to fix that mistake right away and then still relax into the rest of the track and be the best sack of potatoes you can be.
Sack of potatoes at 82 miles an hour, 2nd best speed. Should be good enough for 2nd. Yes, it is.
Well done. Yep.
Pretty good result for Axel Young.
I'm sure he's going to be quite upset with that groove pop, but then there's definite room for improvement for that 2nd heat.
He just puts himself in position. That was, other than that mistake at the top, which really isn't probably his fault. It's just that not used to being on the natural track ice.
Definitely. So you can see him pushing. And it is, you see the sled wobbling a bit, and it actually popped before he was swapping his hands over. So maybe we can see, I don't know what's, yeah, just a little bit of a wiggle there and a bit shallow.
That could have been a lot worse than it came out to be, that's for sure.
I think he maybe got a good entry to kink 1 anyways from that.
Next athlete from Russia, Alexander Trechikov, the Russian rocket. He won the opening event of the year. He won in Winterberg, 3rd last week. He missed 1 race in Sigulda. He's 5th in World Cup points, and he won the World Championship on this track in 2013.
He's also on a new sled this year, start record, no surprise at all. See if he can hold on to it. There's a couple of people that have kind of snuck up on him on the start.
Well, it might be something to do with his age, too. He's getting a little older.
Could be.
But he's still the Russian rocket in my book.
Definitely. He's on a dirt matching sled this year instead of a Billy Schneider sled.
3/10 ahead. Now, if he's on point, that should grow to 35 or 40 before he gets to the famous horseshoe curve.
A bit early into horseshoe, which makes his height not as high, and a bit of a pump in the telephone.
8th best speed. Saw this morning. The Russian sleds weren't very good this morning.
He's just fighting the sled a little bit. And
6th best speed.
especially in St. Moritz, you gotta let the sled fly.
Watch out here. He could fall 3rd or 4th place.
6th best speed.
This wasn't what the Russian rocket wanted. 5th. Wow. 3200s, but he's tied with Matt Weston from Great Britain. Him and Weston at the top 2 starts, 83 and 84. But, boy, just didn't have it on the Exeter Horseshoe, the speed. I don't know if he was fighting it.
It looked like his entry was a little bit too much to the slider's right. Now, on any traditional track, early or right side entries, if it's a left corner, is best. But his height is about half a sled length too low. You want to be as close to that roof without kissing it as possible. And so he gets bumped as early before he goes into telephone on that slider's left-hand side, which then pushes all of the height to the end of telephone, making Shamrock really, really tricky.
Back up to the top of the track. Next athlete, 3rd in World Cup points, Christopher Grother, another former ski jumper, both Russian athlete or German athletes who come from ski jumping, which is strange, but Grother, pretty good results. Worst finish of the season's been the last 2 events, 8th and 9th. Before that, he was on the podium every race.
He's definitely starting to get some consistency, with the exception of those 2 races.
He was 4th in the Yancheng race in China, where there was two Germans in the top 4.
You can see his head kind of bobbing a little bit left and right. That's him looking for wherever he wants the sled to go.
3 numbers. The horseshoe, speed. Scratching there.
That scratching is actually the helmet of the athlete. Sometimes it's tricky to keep your head off the ice as you hit some heavy G-forces.
4th best speed. Red now instead. It's going to be Red. Still should be a top 2 or top 3 run here. Gassner, his teammates at the bottom. Gassner is ranked way lower
Best
than
speed, 139.3 kilometers per hour. He might get Gassner in this final bit.
He does. Good call, Elizabeth. 300s above Gassner's time. So we have 2 Germans atop the leaderboard. The Germans have 3 Germans atop of the leaderboard. A little different than Sporting's race when they finished 8th, 10th, and 11th, or 8th, 10th, and 12th. So
perhaps they learned from them and were able to change equipment maybe between, say, hey, this didn't work for the girls, let's try something different for the guys.
Well, if they did anything different, definitely log it, because the Germans are 1, 2, 3. Look at these spectacular pictures.
Nice height and horseshoe. Could be a little bit higher if I'm going to be super picky. You can see his head is down. He's not even spotting the exit. Some lovely greetings to home.
Well, Martins Dukars in his 141st start for the World Cup, the multiple world champion, multiple Olympic medalist. And he's ahead of the World Cup Tour, even though he had an 11th place finish in the 2nd race in Innsbruck. The last three events, 1st, 2nd, and 1st. So I think he's turning on the jets.
2nd best start and 2nd best velocity as he heads into that first king. 2/2100ths of a second up.
He should grow. Now, if he keeps things online.
He decided to switch sleds this season. He's on an MCR sled, so made by Matthias Clemens and Ratgerber. He made the change after Beijing because he saw Sammy Meyer was getting such good speeds and was like, I'm going to commit to this.
Told me the other day he's got 300 sets of running.
It's 103.5 out of horseshoe. Best speed.
Well, he's the greatest of all time in our sport. Ridiculous.
115.2. He is flying. I hope we're seeing 140 at the bottom here.
This looks like another track record. He won his 100th World Cup medal last weekend.
Oh, 139.4. He is flying.
85 miles an hour track record.
By nearly half a second.
Martins Dukars. No surprise that the greatest of all time has just done what he's done.
And it looks effortless. He looks so relaxed on that sled.
When he told me the other day that he had 300 sets of runners and he was going to build 10 more before he goes to Beijing, I said, you have this all written down? He says, no, it's all in my head. Martins Dukars, great starter, a great slider, great knowledge of the equipment.
Definitely, really great height there in horseshoe. You can see his head peek up just to see how he's going to go into telephone.
Look at the form, and he's fit, and he stays fit.
Definitely.
Wow.
He's had some problems with his Achilles, I think it was, a couple seasons ago, but he looks to be in top form.
2 cars the leader. First 10 down, the rest coming up. Sinji Young from Korea, 10th in World Cup points, 7th and 4th he opened up the season with. Then he got a bronze medal in Segulda, which I think was his first ever.
Yes, definitely. Start record, not to be surprised. He's very strong on the
Sun
start.
Bin Young is coming up, the Olympic gold medalist from 2018. But these other 2 Korean sliders are the best starters in the world.
Definitely. And now Singi is a bit more of a new slider. And so when we saw him in the kinks, you could see him really fighting. With more of the veteran sliders, you can see them really relax into this track. Leading a little bit of speed and super late into Nash. Fighting the sled, toes are dropped in, and he's just a bit wiggly. 3,800s back and 11th best speed out of Horseshoe.
He's hanging in there, though, for a top 6, which, again, he's doing pretty good World Cup points. He's 10th. The top Korean ranked. Good exit down into the Martineau curve. 9th best speed, though. Should be about 9th or 10th. 9th. 114 back. The young Korean. Track record at the start. He got the best start. Boy, he's young. We could hear a lot about him the next 4 years as we get into Milan Cortina.
Definitely. He can definitely have a long career ahead of him.
Koreans, they brought a lot to the table with these 2 young athletes who are the best starters in the field. Just mistake, though, huh?
Yeah, he just got too much onto the first kink, riding a bit too much, and you can see him fighting it. So sometimes taking the tap is a little bit more beneficial for the athlete than fighting it. He just missed that wall into Nash. Dropping those toes to try to bring it a bit more to the sliders left, just a bit fighting. Hansen Lee is holding the sled. He is a retired Korean slider.
Another Russian, Vladislav Semenov, the 24-year-old from Moscow, ranked 3rd amongst the Russians, but he's first in the points, or should be second in points behind Trent. No, he's 3rd in points. The Russians are 4th, 5th, and 6th. His best finish of the year, a 4th.
I think he also has a potential of a long career ahead of him. Look at that form, head down, feet together, not fighting the sled.
Start time is 7th best.
2,400 back as he heads into Sunny, now into Nash.
Nash and Dixon, now with the Horseshoe. Listen to the names on the track. And these names, Telephone, Devil's Dyke, Nameless. All these, they all got a history behind each one of the names. And they're all names from 100 years ago. Just the legacy of this track. 7th best speed, but looks like 5th or 6th at the moment.
Yeah, a bit of that middle of the pack kind of what has happened so far.
4th best speed in the bottom. He's
Bringing
coming.
it back.
He's bringing it back, maybe 5th. Might be the best Russian. He is. He's right in front of Nikita Tregobov by 200ths. So he's the best Russian. 3rd in points coming in. And the Russians will get 3 into the Olympic Games in Beijing.
As will the Germans. Then it'll be a fight for those spots for 2 athletes and single athletes. Loads quick onto the sleds. Hands are tucked under his legs, holding onto the sled. Looking to the left to try not ride in so much onto that little blip of a curve.
Well,
just dropping out of Shamrock into Devil's Dyke, pushing him late on that left side.
next up at the top of the track is our 2018 Olympic gold medalist, Sun Bin Yeon from Korea. He has been quietly moving up the leaderboard each week. He's now 12th in points. He had results of 6, 13, 26, 9, 13, 17. Last week he got 6th. And I looked at him and sort of winked at him. earlier in the week.
He knows what he needs to do to be successful here. He needs to just relax and let the sled fly.
And, you don't want to peak in December. You want to peak in February.
And he knows how to do that.
Did it pretty strongly. Did it convincingly in 2018. That legendary sliding gold medal that he won.
A little bit of a skid as he heads into Sunny.
Now Nash and Dixon.
A little bit low there in Horseshoe, and a big hit into Telephone.
13th best speed. He's going to fall like a rock in the standings now. Boy, a mistake.
So when you don't get the height that you need in Horseshoe, sometimes you get an extra bit of a wave, and that's exactly what we just saw happen to Sung Bin.
See if the 13th best speed, he got 13th best speed here. Boy, he's going to be fighting for top 10. Might not even beat his teammate, which he doesn't. 11th. I know. I heard Mr. Bromley express his opinion of the run.
Bit uncharacteristic in that area of the track.
Well, back to the drawing board there for our Olympic gold medalist. Certainly not going to move up in points with a run like that.
Into Horseshoe, he didn't have the entry he wanted, and he dropped so low that he almost hits the roof just on that second little blip off his sled as he heads into Telephone.
Very low here, very low. Great pictures from our team. And then he bumps the wall on our right,
Bumps
his
his
left.
wall, he's off his sled.
Yeah, yeah. It's not good to be off the sled, 80 miles an hour. Okay, next athlete, top of the track, somebody you might know a little bit about, your brother-in-law, Sammy Meyer.
Definitely, brother-in-law, housemate. Now, Sammy's strength is definitely not on the start, but he is a phenomenal driver.
Fifth there in Altenburg a couple weeks ago, his best result of the season.
And he had a podium last year in his home track of Eagles.
He was 9th in the Yangqing event in October. So he's 4,100s back. He keeps it at 41 and on the bottom post best speeds. He could finish in the top 10.
Definitely just got to relax into it.
41 to 43 is a good sign. It means he's sort of stopped the bleeding.
He's struggling a bit with Horseshoe. Really good height. A little bit of a bump into Telephone.
Second best speed.
102.4.
There he comes. This is what these speed merchants can do. Get to Horseshoe. Slingshots yourself to the bottom.
He's climbing it back. Second best speed, I think, only behind Martins.
He started off with the 14th best start. He's in the 5th position at this moment. Third on the bottom in the speed. Could be top 4.
Hey!
Wow. That will tell you what good driving can do on this historic St. Moritz track.
A great run and even a little bit room for improvement. I think Sammy's got to be stoked. Now, as the athletes come down, they have no idea what position they're in. So when we see a bit of confusing remarks, it's because they just aren't quite sure.
Wow. He's in a position to medal with his 4,300s behind at the top of the track.
A bit of a bump into Devil's Dyke. He saves it quite well. And a little bit of bump here on the left, slider's left. So if he cleans that up, he can try and maintain.
Now, Jisoo Kim, another one of these Korean rocket ships. 14th in World Cup points. Best finish of the year, 9th.
It's a shame that there aren't 3 spots for 3 nations, because Korea would have been that 3rd nation.
It'll be interesting to see. Look at this great start, though. Look at that.
You see his head kind of going around, trying to get that perfect line as he needs.
Well, he's got green numbers now. It's going to be tough to keep it, though.
Just bleeding a little bit of speed.
He's 27 years old.
1700s back. 10th best speed.
Yeah, he's going to fall from there. Still, hold on. He was in 4th in horseshoe. He's at the 3rd at the moment. Maybe the track's getting faster, like we saw in the women's race. People who went later in the heat had warmer, slicker ice to work with. 11th best speed there, though. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay in the top 4.
6, probably.
Oh,
9th.
He went from 3rd to 9th.
And the start record at that, too.
Yeah.
It's really tricky if you don't get the speed out of horseshoe. It's hard to find it on the rest of the track.
But he is the best Korean. Only 2 of these 3 Koreans will go to the Olympic Games. So the race within a race, TV doesn't do any justice how steep that is, that exit point there. But look how powerful these guys are at the start. Yeah. They're all big quads. Watch him get on the, it's almost like a gymnastics event with landing with his hips.
And
Boy.
then getting into that aerodynamic position as quick as possible.
Likes it. Don't blame him. Here's our standings. Ducard's, Grothier, and Nair.
Tie for 3rd with Gasner and Meyer.
Amadeo Bagnes is now up for Italia. Young slider. Got some problems out of that first curve.
It's really tricky when there's a bit of a skid or a tap in that straightaway to get the sled back online. Head is nice and low, good aerodynamic position.
Best finish of the year, 11th in Altenburg. He's 15th in World Cup points.
I think Amadeo's definitely got to be looking forward to the next quad with a home Olympics coming up in 2026. Really early into horseshoe, drove it to the roof. 10th best speed. That is because of that fight in those first kinks and just a couple little wall taps here and there.
Now we're starting to think about who's going to make the cut. Top 20 athletes. 12 sleds will not make the second run.
This is a huge race, and that is because of European Championships. So
That's true.
not only is it Olympic qualifying final race, final World Cup, it's also European Championship.
Ooh, nice on the bottom. That's going to put him in the field for sure. Pretty much where he is in the World Cup standings. 12, that's pretty good. So he started off with the 7th best start, which wasn't bad. I'm sure the Italians think that he's got a lot of promise, just like they do in the women's skeleton too.
Definitely.
So they're, as you said, preparing for Milan Cortina 4 years from now.
Look at how close he gets to the roof. I don't actually think he touches it. You need to get that height around that little yellow sign to get a bit of a slingshot out of horseshoe.
How daunting is that going to the
Oh,
curve?
it's an interesting feeling because you see the roof and you need to take it to it. See that toe, that left toe drop just to get him off the corner.
So another Italian coming up, Mattia Gaspari, who, this is quite a personality, huh?
Definitely, and he's planning to stick around for another quad, as it will be a home Olympics, and he can actually see the track, or where the up groove hop again. He can see the track from the balcony of his house.
Cortina D'Ampezzo, 28 years old, 4 years ago right now. He was qualified to go to the Olympic Games and tore up an Achilles. So now it looks like he will be going. It looks like the Italians will have 2 sleds in the Olympic Games. Look, that changes.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's so difficult when you pop a groove to have to bring it back online right away.
Yeah, he's an experienced slider.
Very experienced slider. A little bit low in horseshoe, will take a bit of a bump in the telephone.
Is there 2:11?
4th best speed. That is very good considering the groove pop at the start of the track.
I think we're going to start seeing some good times here as the track seems to warm up and get a little film, a little water on top, reduce the friction.
Great aerodynamic profile. 7th best speed.
Coming. 14th best time though, but he's going to make the field. Well, just like his teammate.
Just in front of his teammate.
By the race within a race, he's
10th.
right behind his 12th. Yeah, 2/10. Well, another day at the office for him.
You know, as an athlete, when that happens, that you just have to bring it back as quickly as possible and drive as best as you can. Same exact spot that we saw happen with Axel Jung. As he's going to flip over to put that hand onto the sled, just picks it out of the groove just a little bit.
Well, you can always get a descriptive of his run from him for sure. Next up from Great Britain, Marcus Wyatt. Wasn't in the race last weekend. 19th in World Cup points. Best finish of the season, a 10th in Innsbruck, the second race. They get a good start.
The Brits are very good on the start. They have very strong athletes when it comes to that. And it's just going to take a little bit of time for these guys to start flowing on the more driver's tracks.
Marcus is 30 years old, born and lives in Bristol. Rugby player, super soccer player. Played a little American football too. Good form.
Good position on the sled, definitely.
Get the results.
Nice height there in horseshoe, not fighting the sled. The speed just isn't quite there.
7,900's back, 13th best speed. Looking like he's running to a 15th position, which put him on the bubble for the cup.
Perhaps he has just a bit too much grip because his run is quite nice, but the speed's not quite there.
15th. So
just ahead of Sung Bin Yoon, or tied with Sung Bin Yoon.
it could be interesting. He could be a bubble candidate.
Still a lot of sliders still to go.
Do you know if you've had a good run when you get to the bottom? Do you know?
I think it's a bit tricky because if I look at his run, it was quite good, but the time isn't indicative of that. Nice height and horseshoe, could be a meter or two further into the corner for being real picky. Yeah, I get that feeling too.
Next up from the Ukraine, Vladislav Herkosevich. He's like, you know, a great slide. Can really glide. He's got a good opportunity here. He's 18th in World Cup points. Missed the cut in the first two events of the year.
He had
and last week too, but he had a 6th place in Sigulda a couple weeks ago.
And he ended up changing sleds right after Beijing as well. So he wasn't quite pleased with the sled that he was on in Beijing and decided, no, we need to change it going into this season.
He was 13th in the Yangcheng track in October.
So not only is this an Olympic season, this will be his second Olympics, should qualify and everything goes okay. He's also learning brand new equipment too. But he's young, he's early 20s and has a long career potentially ahead of him.
He's one of the bigger athletes though, for Skeleton, isn't he? A little thicker?
Definitely. He had a lot of troubles with that new weight rule coming in. There needed to be a max combined weight.
14th place, 3-corner.
Well, he's starting to come on. 17th start, 14th at the moment. Good speed down here. Could get him into 11th or 12th. 6th best speed. This is what he does. He's really good at the speed parts of the track. 12th, 8300s. There's his father. He'll take that, top 12, you know, his best finish of the year. You know, it was 6th there a couple weeks ago in Sigulda, which was surprising.
But it is his home track, so he's had a lot of runs on there. It is his favorite place. He's a bit low in horseshoe, so now when you don't get that height, he dips quite a bit, and he's going to have to fight it to make sure he doesn't tap into telephone. You can see, similar to Sung Bin, just the shoulders come up, and it's really tricky.
Next up, Alexander Schlinter from Austria. And what do you know about this guy? He's new, right?
He is not super new, as most skeleton athletes start quite young. He spent his first half of the season in ICC and podiumed in Whistler.
Oh, big skid.
skid.
There, 14th best start, but that's going to 17th best speed. Tall athlete, too.
Very, and he needs to just kind of settle down in this little area.
So up here, the top part of the track, this is the snake curves. Now the second snake, Sunny. Now the two curves named Nash and Dixon coming up, named after the two British athletes who won the Olympic gold medal in bobsledding in Innsbruck in '64. Now with the horseshoe.
He's also in his early 20s, so he has the potential for a long career as well. 8th best speed out of horseshoe, that's really great.
14th best start. He's in the 15th position at the moment, but with that speed, he should improve. 6th best speed there.
He's crawling up the leaderboard.
Good lines. Out of Gunter Sachs, down into Martineau, into Portago, to the finish with 11th best speed, and he finishes 14th, which should give him the opportunity for the second run.
This is only his 4th World Cup. He got just 2 this season and 1 the season prior.
Are you out of breath when you get to the bottom?
Oh, definitely. You're running at full speed and then have to relax. And I'm not sure how much we breathe when we're going down the track, to be honest.
So no breathing for 1:09.
I'm sure there's some, but he needs to be a little bit higher there. He gets that little bit of an extra bump on the exit of horseshoe.
Here's our standings. 20 sleds down. Martins Dukars is in the lead. That's no surprise. 12 more sleds to go. Next up from the United States, Andrew Blazer. He's from Meriden, Idaho. Went to the University of Idaho, was a decathlete.
Spent the first bit of his season on ICC, a big skid as he heads into the first kink.
Hasn't made the cut. 2 previous events in Sigulda and Winterberg.
Approaching ball corner.
16th best start.
Good aerodynamic position.
134 behind.
He's 33 years old. Whether or not he's on the Olympic team, most likely is.
Most likely. There's no room for coach's discretion on the American side.
But the USA gets 1 slot.
Yeah.
There's Moritz, Austin Florian's coming up.
20th best speed. Just struggling a little bit to find the speed on this track.
Yeah, this is going to be tough to make the cut. Speed, 17th best speed.
You can see his shoulders peeking up just a little bit. So when you do that, we're losing a bit of contact on the sled. It's not as aerodynamic, and you actually cannot control your sled as well.
Cooling down, 20th place, boy. Right on the bubble.
Pushing Evan Neufeld out of the race. We're already 20 athletes down and quite a few still more to go.
Well, his teammate, Austin Florian, for sure could beat him up. Right on the bubble, tough in the tour, the coach says. Start,
Loads quickly onto the sled, get his hands tucked under. So the way we hold on to our sled, it's kind of underneath our legs generally. Fighting really hard in horseshoe. You need to keep those legs together to keep that aerodynamic profile and not steer the sled unintentionally. Drops that left toe to get it off.
Thanks for watching. My mask broke. We got this one still.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, another youngster in the field here. It's not a youngster. It's Nathan Crumpton,
Of American Samoa.
American Samoa. Now, this athlete's very interesting. He slid from the United States in the Austria 2015 World Championships in Innsbruck, Eagles.
Ended up getting injured the year of the Olympics in Pyeongchang.
He did make it, but he was 8th, top 10 at the World Championships. He's a Princeton University track and field athlete, and really good. And then
he's a summer Olympic athlete as well.
He qualified this summer for the
Tokyo Olympics.
Tokyo Olympics. Played in the sprints. And not too many summer. We have it in bobsled and women's bobsled, but great piece on YouTube to check it out. Wrote a book.
A little bit of a tap there into doubles.
He's on the bubble for making it into this Olympic Games. So
it will probably come down to this race for a lot of athletes.
Yeah, he's got to get 18th here to have a chance to get him the second run. He makes the second run, I think he's going to have a chance to make the Olympic Games.
19th best speed as he heads to the finish line.
20th.
Sitting on that bubble.
Andrew Blazer out. Boy, it's going to be tough to maintain it. But, you know, Nathan Crumpton. Wow. Not too many people can say they marched in the Winter and Summer Olympics parade.
He was also the flag bearer, too, at the closing ceremonies.
Yeah. Princeton University graduate. Writing books.
Could have been a little bit higher, a little bit later in the corner. You can see him fighting with his legs. Just coming off of Shamrock, a bit too much height.
Next up from Down Under. Well, we just saw somebody from Down Under this morning win the women's skeleton gold medal.
What a big day for Australian sliding sports. Big skid as he comes out of the start group.
31 years old from Perth. Twin brother also slides.
Really fighting the sled here.
Tough for him to qualify. He's got one World Cup result, 19th in Altenburg. He's been on the ICC and the North America's Cup. 21st best start, he's fallen to 23rd.
Especially in an Olympic season, we can see a lot of athletes bouncing between circuits to try and get as many points as possible for that qualification.
Still 23rd.
10th best speed out of Portugal.
Give him a chance to move up.
But he's really got to settle down.
15th, he lost it. Must have had a bad telephone, devil's Dyke. Because he went from 10th speed to 15th speed. And now he's locked into that 23rd position.
A little bit of a tap.
Yeah. Before Martineau, now in the Portago curve. Oh, 23rd, 1.83 for Nicholas Timmings.
Coached by Jeff Payne there at the top of the track.
Well, the Kangaroos did pretty good this morning. You know, winning the gold medal, their first ever gold medal in the sliding sports in any discipline. Jacqueline Narcott, pretty emotional win for her.
For all of us watching, I would agree.
Yeah, everybody. And everybody was rooting for it.
Definitely.
Second was Kimberly Boss of the Netherlands, who won the World Cup title. The leaderboard was 9 different nations in the first 9 places. Pretty exciting day for the sport of skeleton.
Lots of height there, extra shamrock.
Now we get into Craig Thompson from Great Britain. Get some decent starts. 20th in World Cup points.
Big skid as he comes around that first kink. Sometimes if you're fighting it too much, you're just going to Tokyo drift it a little bit.
17th is best finish of the year. Innsbruck, so he's around that 17, 18, 19, 20th mark.
We can see his IBSF logo on that slider's race bit because of how high his shoulders are. He really needs to relax into that sled, otherwise air is getting in there.
Yeah, the second best start. So you might be just telling him probably what he already knows. He needs to get lower. But with that second best start, he's already fallen to 6th. Ooh, that's a tap.
When you take that roof tap, it's easy to get a second wave as well. 99.8. He's
23rd best speed.
From second start,
He's now 11th. And he's falling falling more. Away from 16th now.
Little bit of a tap on his right.
24th best speed. Greg Thompson from the GPR. 20th, he hung in there though.
Right on the bubble, but there's still quite a few athletes still to come.
Wow. Second best speed, or second best start. You know, just couldn't hold it. But that's why where he is. He's finished 20th. He's 20th in World Cup points. So he's pretty much the norm.
So this is the tricky thing with horseshoe. You need to get as close to the roof as possible without tapping it. And he just taps it a little bit, sends the sled down quite aggressively. You can see that nose change of the sled. And because of that, he's going to come down too soon. There's a little bit of corner left. He's still got to bring it off.
As it weighs the sled, as they do. Next up from Canada, this is the youngest athlete in the field, 20-year-old Blake Enzi from Calgary. Former hockey player and speed skater, and fell in love with scouting. You've seen this guy emerge in the last few years.
Definitely, and he has huge potential ahead of him. He swapped sleds this season as well to a Schneider, so he's just starting to learn that as well. But he definitely has the potential of a long career ahead of him. First time to St. Moritz, first time on a lot of European tracks this year.
He had a fourth in the North American Cup in Lake Placid. Best finish of the year.
Bit late as he heads into Nash.
First place.
27th in the World Cup last week in Winterberg.
But he did make the cut in the World Cup in Sigulda, the first Canadian male to do that this season.
He's 21st, he's coming on. Speed 13th.
13th best speed.
He's got a chance here to get into the top.
He
top
is
18,
one
19.
to watch in these
Good
next
speed.
4 years.
15th. Maybe a future Canadian star here in the making. 19th. There it is. Makes the cut. Gotta like that, right? I think that's going to get him in the race.
I sure hope so.
He's got to be happy with that, wouldn't you think?
I think so.
Again, well, he's the youngest guy in the field, and he just finished 19th. Good form there.
Yeah, a bit low in horseshoe. He could be a bit higher. But being that it's his first time to St. Moritz, I think he can be very pleased with that.
Especially if he makes the second run.
Definitely. A little bit of a tap on the sliders right here between the last two corners, Martineau and Portego.
Okay, so our next athlete, one of the veterans in the field. Oh, there's our standings. Stucars, Grothier, and Meyer, and Gossner, who are tied for third. Next up, the veteran Ander Maribel. 91st start in the World Cup for this veteran.
And he's working for his 4th Olympic berth, if I remember correctly.
And they're right on the bubble.
He had a great season in North America. He is a very experienced slider.
He's just a great promoter of the sport.
Definitely, and he's really starting to bring it on for Spain. There was a young girl in the women's race today for the European Championships. He's 1.23 back, and that's all indicative of the start. He's not a quick starter.
26th, he's way in the back though.
Nice height into horseshoe. Really nice entry into telephone. 4th best speed out of horseshoe. He had huge speed, 4th best speed again.
He's coming on, he's still 24th though.
He had great speed during the last day of training.
Here he comes.
Best speed, 139.9.
Come on, gotta get in the top 20 with that run. Come on, Ander. Oh, boy, he ran out of track.
Yeah, he did. He had a couple more curves. That speed was phenomenal, though, at the bottom of the track. I was hoping to see a 140 today. That might be the closest that we get.
Wow.
Oh, I hope he's still pleased with the result. Just a bit too much fighting here off the kinks, and it's really tricky when you have that start You need to be as perfect as possible. This is the height that I'm talking about in horseshoe. Right around that yellow sign where it says horseshoe is where you want to be peaking, sending the sled out from there, and that's why we saw that phenomenal speed.
Wow, he did it right in the bottom.
So, bottom okay.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ander.
So next up from Romania, Mihail Sebastianovic, who, you know, doesn't get great results the start time, but the Romanians, they're in every discipline. Very proud sliding sports country.
This is going to be a fight to make that second heat.
He hasn't made one in 5 disciplines so far this year. You know, the start time, well, the 23rd best start, which doesn't help.
You can see how high that slider's head is. And like I mentioned before, it's a bit tricky because you're going to get that extra drag and that wind under the slider's chest instead of that nice tuck aerodynamic position.
Second place.
Sure, it's close for these guys to also get into the field.
Nice smooth line in horseshoe. Fighting really hard between telephone and shamrock.
1.3 the speed.
He's just fighting the sled a little bit too much here. You can hear the sled's getting 20th best speed. It's really tricky when you're a new slider to really trust your instincts and put that head down. 16th best speed. He's definitely pulled it up in this bottom little bit of the track.
22nd though, 22nd.
20th.
He got in there.
Yes! Oh.
There, hey. There's some good excitement from the Romanian coach.
It is so tricky to call that bottom part of the track because that timing is so long and so much can happen in those last few curves.
Boy, he came, bottom part of the track looks like it's speeding up.
I guess we'll see. Maybe it's in the sunny now, in the sun.
Look at him lean.
Yeah, you can see his left elbow poking out a bit, looking. You can see, pick his head up, see where am I in this corner? It's buried. Okay, and we're good. Or really falling off of Shamrock into Devil's Dyke.
Hey, he's 20th.
Yep.
Sebastian. Okay, now from Israel, Jared Firestone. Boy,
Coached by John Farrow.
he had a real semi-crash in Altenburg last week, this athlete here. And Israel's right on the bubble for making it in. And he's got 2 black eyes.
Yeah, I did see that. I wasn't sure what was that.
I asked him, he had a big lump on his forehead last week that they said no, it wasn't a problem. But
All right.
you know, he's got 2 black eyes and doesn't face him. He's out here and going for it.
You can see the sled just kind of moving underneath the athlete. It is really tricky when that sled breaks out into a skid. You got to put those knees into those steering paddles just to gain a little bit more bite onto the runners. The runners are what touches the ice. It's not like skate blades. They're actually round tubes with grooves in the back, and it's athlete's choice to what those grooves may be.
Probably his first time
Big
here.
tap in
Couple big taps.
Shamrock.
He's definitely not going to make the cut, but he's getting a chance to experience this.
The first time under the lights with the cameras. Just fighting a little bit. It's so hard on those right-handers once you get offline to bring it back.
It's going to be knowing that he slid the historic track at Moritz through and down. 28th. Farrell just says, that's all we can do.
Yep, room for improvement. It's a learning experience. Come back stronger next time.
I know Israel's got a chance in the 2-man bobsled at the end of the list, but I don't know if they're going to do it in skeleton.
Not high enough at all in horseshoe. And you see that sled come down before the corner is over, and so he ends up too high. Really big tap into telephone, and then a big tap between telephone and Shamrock. Way too much height on the exit. He's lucky for that hit to bring him a bit earlier.
Next up from the United States, Austin Florian, 31 years old, Southington, Connecticut. Clarkson University graduate.
And he's on a sled he built himself. So that's pretty cool as well.
Got a little engineering going on up there in Clarkson. You know, one of those Clarkson engineers. Clarkson's known for great hockey, college hockey in the United States. It's about an hour from Lake Placid. It's down on a skiing trip in Whiteface Mountain. And somebody said, let's go over and try skeleton. Came over and tried it, and here he is. He's been the #1 ranked skeleton athlete for the U.S. this year. Had a rough season, though.
He's 27 years old. He had swapped sleds earlier in the season and decided to go back on his own here.
He's got a 20th place finish, won in Innsbruck, the second race of the year. Right now, he's got 12th, 13th, 16th. Keeps this going. He's 11th best speed. That's not going to help. Good chance of him making the cut. Oh, he's up to 18th now, though.
19th best speed here.
Three corner, 50-55.
Bit of a skid as he heads.
Doesn't look good. It's going to be right in the bubble. 20th best speed. He's looking for at least a 20th spot to get into the final run of the season, and he does it. 127 by 300s. He beats Anash from Romania.
There's still 2 more athletes to come.
Yep. 2 more athletes, and I don't know much about either one of those athletes, but he walks up, doesn't look happy.
Into horseshoe, nice height.
If you remember early in the season in Altenburg, in the first heat, he had like the 6th best time coming late in the heat, and he crashed on the lip of the finish curve and came across the finish line, but since then, he has not been on point.
No, but it's going to take a little bit of time. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him for sure.
Next up from Japan, Rin Kinoshita. Doesn't have a bad start. Pretty inexperienced.
I think it's only his 4th World Cup today.
Pretty good. Look at that. That's an awesome start.
8th best start, 12th best velocity. Big skid.
Doesn't take much to figure out that's not the way to do it.
No, and it's so hard once that skid starts to come, bring it back online. And because he is a bit more of an inexperienced rider, you might not have that feeling yet to drop the correct toe to bring it back.
He went from the 8th best start to now he's in the 28th position. Most of that related to the curves.
So the first 2 little curves, 29th best speed. He's just struggling to get the grip underneath him. You can hear the sled skidding, you can see it sideways.
So he's still pretty much back of the pack, but encouraging that he's got a good start time. If you have a good start, you have a chance for some good finishes. If you got a bad start, you really don't have a chance. Yeah. Head down, 30th place. Pops his athletes safe at the bottom. Will not get a second run. They're down to 1 sled. The longest. This is the longest competition.
This is a big race, that's
big race.
for sure.
32 entered, 31 will compete. Jean-Jacques Buff is not going to compete today.
He lives just down the road from here.
He was a former Cresta guy. Look at this. He dragged his toe out there right off the bat. And then around the first curve.
Happening.
And then, do you try and steer away, or what do you do?
You can see his head kind of moving, his toes trying to move and bring it back.
That ain't the way to do it right there.
No, it's so tricky.
Good start time, young man. Lucas Defiant from France. I haven't seen too much of him.
He did have an injury just after that Eagles World Cup, so he's just going to be fighting for a position for that Olympic Games. He also slides bobsled as well.
Pretty good lines there. The start time well. 29th best start. That doesn't help the matter.
Bit late there into snake one.
I'm Austin Florian. I'm starting to feel good about being the first sled in the second heat. The 20th place to 1.
Approaching horseshoe.
approaching Horseshoe. Sliding now through the forest with famous names, Telephone, Devil's Dyke, Nameless, Bridge, Tree. Gunter Sachs, the famous industrialist from the 50s and 60s. Now he was the president of the St. Moritz Bobsleigh Club. Now into the Martin Curve, named after the original president of the St. Moritz Bobsleigh Club in 1923. Threw it down, 31st place. The Romanian coach who's helping the French. French and Romanians always had a good relationship.
I think he really just struggled with grip the whole way down the track.
Well, chalk it up to more experience for Lucas.
Into Horseshoe, you can see his head kind of leaning away from that roof. Really, we would say banana-ing on this sled, a bit of a banana steer. Drops the toe to get it off. You can see that elbow poking out. Needs to keep it nice and tight. Into Devil's Dyke. It's really tricky this year. You get a little bit of extra height, and instead of hitting, he goes into a skid in both ways.
Well, Martin Stuckars, the World Cup leader, is leading the race, but there's a couple Germans not far behind him that are challenging him for the World Cup title. But Axel Young is the guy you should be worried about, but if he just stays within 3 places of Axel Young, he'll win the World Cup title. And he's won on this track. He's won 100 World Cup medals as of last week, and just another day at the office.
Definitely. He knows what he needs to do to win the race.
Christoph Gauthier, yeah, he's 50 points behind, so Stuckars has got to stay within 3 of him. So there is some action. Sammy Meyer and Gassner, though.
That'll be a good race. I mean, 4,500s, 4,200s back, 5,200s back. It's gonna. I think we might see some movement in the second heat.
Alexander Trechikov, boy, way back in 10th. Matt Weston from Great Britain, he's tied with also. Jin-Soo Kim, great start. He's in 9th.
The top Korean athlete. Alexander Schlintner making the heat, the second run.
It's first time for him.
Same with Blake Enzi doing it as well.
A couple North Americans will lead the field off.
Bit surprising to see Sung Bin that far back. He has won races here before.
This is the rest of the field who will not make the cut. Top 20 advance. Under Mirabel. Well, time-wise, about 45 minutes from now, we're going to have this final run of the season of men's skeleton. If it's as exciting as it was this morning, you certainly want to watch it. So join Elizabeth Meyer and me, John Morgan. We'll see you in a little bit.